Hey guys, this is Tyler Jackson, the owner and operator of PlaySheetSports.com and the host of the Playsheet Sports Podcast. Today's episode features Nate Tanner, the new head football coach at Princeton. Nate was recently confirmed by the Board of Education on Monday to take over for Keith Taylor, who stepped down in February. Me and Nate talk about the expectations for the program, what he wants to do, installing his offense, talking about the defensive side of the ball, his experience at Parkersburg South and Summers County, and how it will help him here and how he left Parkersburg South and how things went there. I want to thank Nate for joining me today and also want to give a shout out to our sponsors at First Community Bank, Raynell Medical Center, and Princeton Healthcare Center for making this episode possible.
Some see sports as just a game, but it's more than that. It's about building dreams, embracing teamwork, and pushing limits. With every play, every cheer, we're there rooting as partners in their journey. Because at First Community Bank, we believe the youth of today shape our communities tomorrow.
I want to welcome you all to the Playsheet Sports Podcast. I am your host, Tyler Jackson, the owner and operator of PlaySheetSports.com. And I always say it, I'm joined by special guests, but today is an especially special guest, newly minted Princeton football head coach Nathan Tanner, former head coach at Summers County and Parkersburg South, returning to the area. Nate, how are you doing this evening?
Man, I'm doing good. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Coming live from a Chick-fil-A, right?
Yep,
All right.
live from Chick-fil-A in Princeton.
So before we get started, what's Nate Tanner's go-to Chick-fil-A meal?
I'm either getting the chicken sandwich or the chicken nuggets, the 12 count.
All right, a good choices there. So like I said, you were approved yesterday. We're recording this on Tuesday. You were approved Monday as the new head coach of Princeton football, and it's been quite a bit of a journey. The first thing, so I know some of the guys that had reached out to you whenever the job came open, but I want to hear it from your perspective. Kind of tell me how this all transpired because I know Parkersburg South was a good gig for you. You really built that program up and had them in contention each year. So talk to me about how this opportunity came about for you and really what happened to make it happen for you.
Well, I forgot what day of the week it was, but I had just finished up our middle school lifting session one evening. I want to say it was about 7 o'clock. Somebody I'm relatively close with. He's a professor of mine at Concord University, and anytime I came to Princeton, we would talk. And just a great guy. He reached out and told me that the job was going to come open, which initially kind of shocked me. I was surprised, and he mentioned he's like, man, you should think about putting in for it. So that got my wheels turning a little bit. Initially, I didn't think much of it. And I'll be completely honest with you, I wasn't actively looking to leave Parkersburg South because you kind of spoke on this. We put a lot of sweat equity and just poured our heart and soul into that program, trying to build it to what it's been. It was a really good run there. But I went home, talked about it with my wife, called my dad, who happens to be about 30 minutes from here, and it wasn't an initial thing. It happened over a couple weeks. Just did a lot of talking and praying over it, and my wife and I decided, we were at least going to look into it and apply and interview and see what the job had to offer. Obviously, I had to get offered the job first, but to see if it would be a good fit. So, long story short, there were several other people that reached out to, friends, friends of friends, you name it, just a lot of people. And there was a lot of support in place prior to me even accepting the job. That was a really strong draw. And just the area. Went to college at Concord, grew up in Giles County, coached at Summers County for 6 years. I have a lot of people I'm close with in this area. And on top of that, I mean, Coach Pedigo and Coach Taylor, they've built this into a special program. And uh, after the interview and just the time I spent down here, it just seemed like a right fit. There were some other things that happened where I feel like there was some true divine intervention going on. And I just felt a really strong spiritual pull to come down here. So here we are.
It's funny because that same professor is one of the people I talked to about this,
Yeah.
and yeah, great guy. And then obviously, I know you had a good relationship with Chris. I know that before each game he would come and he'd talk to you. I actually this past year during the Hail Mary game, I saw him as he was leaving your sideline and talking to you. So I knew there was that relationship there. In taking this job, obviously there's a lot of talent and. I go back to when you took the Parkersburg South job in 2019. There was a lot of talent there. You took them to a state semifinal your first year there, and I think that was when Brandon Penn was the quarterback, right? Okay, so
Yes, sir.
yeah, yeah. So with
That
that,
was that, a lot of people don't know this, but that was his first quarter.
yeah, that was just a really good a really good team and kind of ran into a buzzsaw there with Martinsburg, but you kind of step into a similar situation where you have a lot of talent. So do you kind of feel like the situations are a little parallel in a sense?
Yeah, yes and no. I'm gonna be completely transparent up front with you. The situation in 2019 is quite a bit different from this situation in regards to the talent level. The talent that's on this Princeton team is more across the board. Um, and I mean, I'm not saying that to put pressure on anybody or on myself, but that first year at Parkersburg South, like I said, Brandon Penn, he'd never played quarterback before. Um, we had two kids playing inside linebacker. One of them was a sophomore, and he was undersized. He was like 165 pounds. And the other one had been a 3-year JV player that had never played inside linebacker. Um, on the offensive line, the right tackle was a kid that quit the year before. He was about 205. The left tackle was about 5'9", 205. We had a center that was a 3-year JV player. Cyrus Straw started as a freshman on that team. Um, the way I would describe it is there were a lot of holes on that 2019 team, and we were able to make a a really good run just off of pure grit and buy-in and just having a lot of fun. And we had some luck along the way. We won some close games, and uh, we did have some talent though. Braxton Amos, he was the number one wrestler in America at the time. He played nose guard. We were able to get some kids back out for football that hadn't been playing football that were good athletes at the school. And we were able to put together a really good staff, and it was a perfect storm. Um, but this group at Princeton coming back, I mean, it's special, and I'm really looking forward to working with them. Today was my first day, meeting the team and working with them in the weight room, and they all seem like really good kids. And the first impression was really good. They listened and they all worked really hard and tried to do what I asked of them. So I think it's going to be a harmonious situation.
Yeah. Now obviously coaches in the building do a good job of self-scouting and those coaches in the building were pretty transparent about where they thought their weaknesses were last year. But obviously you played them each of the last couple of years. You've prepared for them and you led them I think by 19 points in the fourth quarter of that game last year. Do you think it kind of helps you a lot kind of knowing some of the weaknesses or what some of the weak points were and kind of establishing and putting your own stamp on this thing coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. And the weaknesses that you talk about, that's no discredit or disservice to anybody prior to me. It's just I think really, everybody has weaknesses. I have weaknesses that I try to work on daily, but um, as a program, we're going to take our kid and our kids and our program's weaknesses right now and try to turn them into strengths. And you know, some of the weaknesses that I feel like we have at Princeton were some of the similar weaknesses that we've had at South. Maybe not last year, but years prior. And I've done a lot of soul searching and just self reflecting to really dial it in as a teacher and a coach to fix those things. So um, the two big things that I'm going to harp on every single day is behaving like a champion at all times. Um, and with that, having ultimate discipline towards the process of what we're doing. And what you get from that is execution at a high level. So we're going to be preaching that and talking about that until people are sick of it. But I think, not think, I believe by doing that's what will take this program to the next level. I plan to not only, sustain this program, but make it a premier program in West Virginia, the best football program in West Virginia. I think this place is capable of that. I use this analogy. I feel like I told my wife this: we're getting the keys to a Cadillac, but we're going to try to turn it into a Lamborghini.
I
So,
like that. Um,
yeah,
one thing that stood out, and I told people this, and you can even ask Chris Pettigo because I had this conversation with him numerous times. I thought last year's Princeton team reminded me a lot of your 2022 Parkersburg South team, where they were
yeah, that's a
immensely
good comparison.
talented. Yeah, where they were immensely talented, but I thought there were a lot of flaws, and I don't mean that in a, a mean way or anything like that, but I wrote about it at the time. I thought one of the things that really hurt, I think Shockey was your quarterback that year, right?
Yes,
I think
yeah,
one
that
of
was
the
Shockey, Gage Wright,
and Tyra.
Cyrus Straw, all those kids.
I thought one thing that really hurt Shockey's Kennedy candidacy that year was I thought there were a lot of turnovers, and I thought that would be one thing that kind of hurt South in the end. And I think you would agree in that Huntington championship game. I think there were
Yeah,
about
we, yeah,
five.
we. I'm sorry to interrupt you,
Oh,
but
no, go ahead.
yeah, we lost the state championship due to lack of execution, of the details, lack of discipline within our assignment and technique, and you
Now,
know,
it
that's a tough pill to swallow.
it is, and the reason I make that comparison is because I feel like with last year's Princeton team, I thought a lot of the flaws that hurt them and the penalties were things that were completely unavoidable. So and trying to get that in the right direction, and I thought they did a good job of correcting a lot of it towards the end of the year. But what are some lessons that you take from that 2022 team that you can kind of take and apply to this team?
Well, really, a lot of what we just talked about, something that I had implemented at Parkersburg South before I took this job was, um, I changed up our process into the weight room. Um, just everything is uberly detailed. You'll have to come by the school and look at it one day once we get it implemented in Princeton. But it's going to take a week or two. But everything is on a whistle. Um, the weight has to be a certain way. Behavior has to be a certain way. Just everything is just attention to detail the entire time that we're there. And once kids get acclimated to that and doing that, daily, it bleeds into the rest of their life. And that's when they start executing everything at a high level. But I talked about divine intervention. I think it's kind of ironic. I've experienced, some of the things that you're talking about, lost in a state championship as a coach because of these things. And I do self-reflecting as much as I possibly can. And you either figure out why you're having the issues that you're having and go fix it, or I call it BCD. You just blame, complain, and defend, and you don't get anywhere from it. So, I know I've made mistakes as a coach and a teacher, and that's one of them. So I plan on bringing that philosophy and process to Princeton, and but it's going to help our program get over the hump and become more special than what it already is.
Gotcha. We're going to go ahead and take our first break and hear from our sponsors at First Community Bank. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Nate Tanner's offense.
For the past 4 decades, Princeton Healthcare Center has provided a quality experience for countless families to give them a warm and safe senior living environment. We're much more than a nursing home, offering skilled nursing services in a long-term care community. If you're looking for a skilled nursing facility that is as compassionate as it is comprehensive, look no further. Contact us today to schedule a tour for you or your loved one. Princeton Healthcare Center, a commitment to caring.
back here on the Play Sheet Sports podcast, joined by Nate Tanner, the new head coach at Princeton High School. Nate, the first thing I want to talk about with your offense is I don't think that you fit necessarily into any sort of certain system. Going back to the 2022 team, you were able to do a bunch of different things. Obviously, Cyrus was a Moss Award winner in that offense. And then last year, you guys leaned on the run, and that's one thing that you're able to gash Princeton with when you guys came down here. Uh, you know, Talk to me about that philosophy of not trying to fit a round peg into a square hole or a square peg into a round hole, whichever way you want to say it. Because I feel like that's a lot of coaches kind of get stuck in that, but just watching your teams over the years, that's not really the way you've operated.
Yeah, well, I think my experience at a small school like Summers County, Martinsville was a smaller school too, but I think in particular at the high school level, we don't have the autonomy and power to go out and recruit. The only kids that you can recruit are the ones that are in your hallways. And whatever kids you have in your hallways and the kids that you can get onto your team, you find the strengths and weaknesses of that group and you try to capitalize on the strengths that you have. And, you spoke on the team last year. If you're a team that is driven offensively by your offensive line and your tailback, that's probably what you're going to lean on a little bit more. If you're a team that has a 3-year starter at quarterback, a first team All State receiver, if you got a really good tailback as well, I mean, you can be a little more balanced with the touches per se. Um, and if you look at our team in like 22 and 19 at South, you had a lot of guys touching the ball. Last year, Eli Bartley, he was the workhorse. We had some receivers that had some good years of or good a good season as well last year. But like I said, we were led by our tailback and our offensive line. And I think what's important and what we've been able to do as a staff is develop a system. We do have a system in place, but that system has to be adaptable to whatever kids you have. Then you go from there. And I think, that just comes down to teaching. Whatever you feel really, really good teaching, you try to take, your methods and your philosophies and teach it to the kids' strengths, meet them where they are. And I use the analogy. Our staff at South could tell you this. We talk about a fruit. Think of an orange. You have an orange and you're trying to squeeze as much juice as you possibly can out of it. That's how we think about our players. And, um, whatever drives that, that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to get out as much as we possibly can.
You know, So I think Princeton fans are probably going to be pretty entertained watching you on the sidelines when you're relaying play calls. I know you don't want to give away too much, but I when I watched you, you had like three different guys like doing all of like these different signals and everything like that.
Right.
How do you kind of go about implementing that and teaching that to kids? Because they've obviously been a very successful offensive system over the last couple years, and that there's it's going to change. It's going to be a little bit different this year. So but talk to me about transitioning a group that's pretty senior heavy, and they've seen a lot of different football, and kind of putting them and teaching them the things that because for me, I'm sitting here looking at three different guys on the sideline, and I'm just like seeing all these different motions and everything, and
Right.
the kids just your kids the South really seemed to know exactly what you were relaying, and I didn't think there was a ton of confusion there.
Yeah, well, it goes back to this. It goes back to teaching, and um, that's where your spring and summer practices come into play. Something I try to do as a coach is we use our summer period kind of like a spring ball period, like a college team would do,
Mhm.
and we go through our install and how we do things in June. Then we take a break. Then in July we repeat the exact same process. Then we take another little break, and then we start back in August, and we repeat the exact same process. And not only does the varsity do it, the JV will do it too. I have people ask me like, "Your young guys do that as well?" Yes, the exact same system. So once kids get to high school and they go ninth through 12th grade in it, it's like speaking English. They know it, and I use that as an example because that's what it is. They're just learning a new language, and the language is way, way, way more simple than the English language. I'll tell you that. Like Tyler, I could teach you this stuff in probably 2 or 3 days. It's not complicated. And you see all the signs and stuff flying up, but once kids understand exactly what to look for, it's pretty simple. And a vision of mine, for Princeton is to get that implemented at the lower levels as well. That way, when they get to the high school, they're not thinking at all.
Raynell Medical Center is proud to offer RMC Lewisburg Pediatrics and Family Health Center, offering quality primary and pediatric care from head to toe. Adult and child well visits, acute visits, ADHD management, behavioral health therapy, parent-child interactive therapy, osteopathic manipulative treatment, lab services, DOT physicals, sports physicals, and more. Our office is open 5 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Call for your appointment today.
Want to welcome you back to the Play Sheet Sports Podcast. Had a technical difficulty, so we went to an ad break, but I am rejoined by Nate Tanner, the new head coach of Princeton football. And Nate, where we left off, we were talking a little bit about defense. Obviously, you're really known for your offense and the fireworks that they're able to put up and the players you produce on that side of the ball. But you've also produced some really good defensive players. Everyone kind of looked at Gage Ray as a running back, but I think he led the state in sacks with 15 or so a couple years in a row. So a really good defensive player, and obviously you inherit some what I would call blue chip defensive players again this year. I had messaged you when I was filling out my Kennedy ballot this past year, and because you had played a lot of these players, you played Wes Brown, you played the Martinsburgs of the world. I didn't think that there was really anybody more qualified in the coaching world to give me an idea of, how would you go about ranking some of these kids than you. So I do want to, and you put Daniel Jennings on there as one of the top 3 or 4 players that you had played this year. So I want to start off with the two stalwarts on defense. It starts on the with those kids and Caleb and Daniel, and I know that they had bounced a little bit between the defensive line and linebacker, and you'll have some time to evaluate what you want to do there. But uh, you know. I do want to start off with do you have an idea of how you want to run the defense or how differently you want to do it as opposed to last year?
Well, defensively, I plan on us being multiple. And there's a couple reasons for that. Since I've been in coaching, I think in particular in high school, you see so many different things schematically, over the course of your schedule. So within your system, you have to be able to defend, spread offenses, uh,
Single wing.
heavy spread offenses, single wing, wing T, heavy I formation sets, uh, full house. I mean, you name it. I mean, you see a little bit of everything. And whenever I look at our schedule going into this year, that's how it is. So defensively, we're going to be multiple. And you brought up Calum and Daniel. What makes those two guys special is they're exceptional athletes with exceptional size. So I think they can play at the first level on the D line. I think both of them can play at the second level as well. Excuse me, but I have the same mentality defensively as I do offensively in regards to fitting your personnel how it best fits, and we're going to do everything we can to put the kids that we have on our team in the best situation possible to get the most juice out of them per se. And as far as what we're going to do philosophically, I said we're going to be multiple, but I foresee us being a high pressure defense that flies around. They're going to be extremely tough. They're going to play fast and be very physical. I told our kids today in the meeting, when we step out on the field on defense, I plan on us bringing hellfire towards the opponent in as many ways as we possibly can, but remaining simple as well. So, similar to offense, like I said, apply pressure to the defense, with tempo from a defensive standpoint, apply pressure to the offense, just getting them out of rhythm as much as possible.
Gotcha. With that, obviously the Princeton staff, a lot of those coaches ended up resigning at the end of last year, and one of them was the defensive coordinator, lost the offensive coordinator on. So basically, all the coordinators were rated or stepped down in some capacity. And I know you've had a good idea that you might end up getting this job for a little over a week or so. Tell me about do you have any initial ideas of what you want to do at those positions? And obviously, it's a process. You probably don't have it figured out quite yet, or maybe you do. But just kind of what are you thinking at those spots?
I'll be honest with you. I don't have it completely figured out, but I have several different scenarios in my head in regards to how I think it could play out from a staff standpoint. um, I'll be transparent with you. There's three guys that were previously on the staff at Princeton. I've met two of them in person now, but all three of them through the phone. And I'm still going to sit down and interview them and talk with them so I can get to know them better one on one, and so they can get to know me as well. It'll give them an opportunity to interview me and get to know how I want to do things. But one of those guys has expressed interest in having a coordinator role, and I just got to get to know him more and sit down and talk with him some more. And there's also some guys outside that weren't on the staff that I have in mind of potentially filling some of those roles as well. I plan on calling the offense, and one of the guys that's going to stay on staff, he was their special teams coordinator last year. He's going to remain in that position. But I got a really good feeling about the staff that we're going to put together. I think it's going to be dynamic, and I think it's going to be good having those three guys that have been on staff because the kids are familiar with them. I think sometimes change is tough, especially when you're dealing with teenagers, because trust and mistrust is a very real thing, and the only way to develop trust is by spending a lot of time with them. And those three guys have spent more time than any of us with them, so I think that'll be really important to have. But the guys are going to be additions to the staff that I have in mind. Some of them are former teammates that I had at Concord. Some of them are guys I coached with at Summers County. One of them is a player that I coached at Summers County. It's weird because he was a kid to me, but he's a grown man now. But he's coached at the collegiate level and the high school level, so he's going to be really good for the kids. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to sitting down with all these guys one on one and getting the staff put together. I told the kids I hope to get that done within the next 2 weeks.
One thing that I think that's just such a special skill set in football, and I think that you would have agreed last year in preparing for Princeton is when you have kids that can do multiple things. And I thought, like before Markel Lowe got hurt, that's what kind of made him the most important player to Princeton's cause. Is you could use him as a receiver and a running back. You just never knew where he was going to be. And you probably saw it when prepping for them watching the Independence film. They could basically get your personnel out there and then motion him to utilize how they wanted to. It's like, okay, if you're light in the box, then we can just go ahead and run at you. If you got a linebacker out there, we can motion out, and good luck trying to guard him. With this Princeton
Right.
team, the kids they have coming back, do you think that there is a lot of that same versatility there with some of the kids that you can kind of move them around? Because I think that's just one of the biggest chess pieces in football. I think a lot of people talked about the 49ers over the last couple of years, and one of the things to me that's always made them special is the fact they have players that can do multiple things. Debo Samuel is a running back and a receiver. McCaffrey is kind of the same way. The fullback is a good receiver as well. The tight end can block really well as be a good receiver. Do you see kind of a lot of that with the same group of Princeton kids that are coming back?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with Brad Mosser. I was sitting on the couch last night with my wife. We drove back from Pittsburgh, and I was like, check out this kid's highlight because she's a football girl now, obviously. But I was talking to her. I was like, "Who's that remind you of?" She said Cyrus. I was like, "Yep, absolutely." So, if you look back to 22, Cyrus Trawl, who's at WVU now, I think Brad can be utilized a lot like Cyrus. If you look at Brad's film, he's just good when the ball's in his hands, whether it be on a punt return, a kick return, as a receiver. I think you could snap it to him, you can hand it to him, you can do a lot of things with him. So, whenever you have a kid that's dynamic like that, I think you used the term a chess piece. You just move that chess piece around. You brought up Markel Lowe. Too bad he doesn't have one more year because he was special. But yeah, I think we can use Brad that way. And obviously, Daniel, he's an exceptional athlete. He's a different type of athlete than Brad, but uh, big kid that can move. He's a blue chip. I mean, he's going to Penn State. So that speaks for itself. But anytime you can get him one on one with people, whether it be in space or in the box, that's the thing with the spread offense. The One of the main objectives is to get the ball to your best players in space where they're in one-on-one situations as much as possible. Because probably the hardest skill in the sport of football, maybe in all of sports, is one-on-one open field tackling. I don't know the data or the number on it, but I would venture to say people execute that skill less than 50%. So anytime you can get your really good players the ball in that situation, I think it's a win. Somebody else, Chance at quarterback. I know the past couple of years, he's primarily been a passer, and we're going to use that strength. But I've seen Chance in the flesh coaching against him. He can run too, and he's put on some weight. He's about 190 pounds. I saw him in the weight room today. Works really hard, hungry. So expect to see him run the ball some this year, especially if we get light boxes. Um, the Caleb Kaiser kid, he's a dynamic athlete. Obviously, he plays D line and he's big and strong, but he's skillful too. I saw him in the playoffs last year catch some balls, and that makes him dynamic. I know the Klein kid, he's coming back. He's at baseball right now, so I didn't get to see him in the weight room. And two, there's going to be some other kids step up that develop over the summer that we don't really know about yet. That's something else that myself and our staff is going to take pride in, is developing kids. So plan on seeing some other kids that are a part of the Princeton Tigers that step up and make a name for themselves.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about is when you're a coach, you're often put in these difficult situations, and I kind of felt like last week you were put in that situation whenever uh, the name was leaked. It was circulating throughout the area that you would be the head coach, but nobody had really put the name out there, and it didn't really give you a an opportunity to, I don't think, tell your kids at South. And I don't know how well known it was up there, but it was starting to trickle a little bit out here, and then it was put out there, and I think it kind of put you in a bit of a compromised position. And uh, whereas with Keith it was a little bit different. Most people had already known before he actually told the team. So, as a coach, kind of how'd you go about that situation? Because again, it puts you in, you're not guaranteed the job yet. Anything could jeopardize it. You weren't guaranteed it till it was approved last night. So as a coach, how do you kind of go about that situation where now it's all over social media? You really didn't get a chance to inform your team that you were leaving. I don't, and again, I'm not in Wood County, so I wouldn't know the specifics of if they knew or not. But it just kind of take me through that situation and how you handled it and how the community seemed to handle it. Because everything I saw is they were positive and they were very grateful for what you were able to do during your time there.
Well, the way the news broke, it was unfortunate for me personally. Um, but at the same token, I try to live my life by this. I mean, it is what it is, and it was something that I couldn't control. But I'll tell you what my plan was. I knew I was going to be recommended for the job on that Monday. The administration at Princeton told me that, and I asked them for direction in regards to when I should tell our coaching staff, our administration, and the kids, because I told them, I said I would like for them to know before it's public.
Hmm.
And at the time, I was told that it wouldn't be public knowledge until Wednesday when the personnel agenda got released. So that Monday, I met with the principal and I let her know what was going on. Then that evening, I met with our coaching staff and I let them know what was going on. And my plan was to meet with the AD and the kids Tuesday morning. But after I met with the coaching staff, I was driving home and my phone, you know, went off for probably 4 hours straight. uh, and it was really bittersweet because it was something. Obviously, I'm really excited and very grateful. Feel just abundantly blessed to be in the position that I'm in, to come down here and you know lead this program and be a part of this community. But at the same token, I hadn't got to provide closure, with people that I've spent 6 years with, and put, basically just all of my heart and soul into the process with them. And and a lot of people at South were in complete shock because I hadn't spoke about it to anybody, and I didn't intend to until it became a real thing. Because if it didn't transpire with me getting the job, I didn't want there to be unnecessary, rumbling about it to create distractions from the process that we had it as at hand. So uh, I had a lot of my former players reaching out to me. They were texting me like, "Coach T, is this fake news? Is this for real? Like, are you for real leaving?" Um, and that was before I walked in the door to, meet with my wife. And at the time, we hadn't even told our children that we were moving either. So yeah, that was difficult, man. It was really unfortunate how that came out. But at the same token, you can only control what you can control, and what you can't control, I mean, you just deal with it how it comes. But so to answer your question, I mean, that's how I dealt with it. And I told all those kids that messaged me, I said, look, I'm gonna meet with y'all first thing tomorrow morning. Um, our athletic director, she was in shock. She texted me about it. So I called her right away and explained to her, I'm really sorry. I didn't intend on you finding out that way. I'm gonna meet with you tomorrow. So that next morning, as soon as 8 a.m. hit, we had a team meeting, and I met with the AD, and I explained to him what was going on, and why I was taking the job, and all those things. And obviously, it was it was really really bitter at that moment, but like I said, it wasn't really anything I could do at that point. But as a man, I've always done this. Anytime I leave a place, I have a face to face meeting and explain to them what's going on. So uh, yeah, in regards to leaving South, it's very bittersweet because, like I said, lot of time, a lot of, call it, sweat equity, just emotion. A lot of that went into that process over 6 years, and it's kind of like a breakup. It's tough. It's tough leaving that, but at the same token, I'm really excited about the opportunity at hand.
Absolutely. I ask all my guests this, but on a lighter note, do you have a go-to joke? What's your best joke?
Well, my best joke.
A best joke, yeah. If you had light in the room, right? You had an icebreaker. What would your
Oh
best joke?
shoot.
You got two kids, right? You gotta have a good dad joke or something.
Yeah, okay, I got you. So my dad, my dad, he's not like the funniest person in the world. Sometimes he's corny with these jokes, but I I've done this with my kids, but my dad, um, he got two jokes. One of them is he said, Nate, a horse walks into a bar and the bartender looks at him and says, "Hey man, why the long face?" And then he got another one. He said, a three-legged dog walks into a bar and looks at the bartender. He says, "Who shot my paw?" But yeah, I tell those to my son. He thinks they're hilarious. But yeah, I guess those are my jokes for you. I don't got a lot of good jokes, man.
And I tell everyone this, everyone that listens to the podcast will hear it, but my favorite one is did you know that they made those round bales of hay that you see on the side of the road in farms? Did you know they made them illegal?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because a cow can't get a full square meal.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Well, that's all I got for you, Nate, and I want to appreciate you taking the time tonight. Obviously, we're late, and it's you've had a long day, so I do appreciate you taking this time. And I know you're kind of doing the media tours and everything, but yeah, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off here and you get started with the Tigers?
Man, just really excited. Not just me, my family. We're pumped about the opportunity, and I told the kids today the vision. Make this into the best football program in the state of West Virginia. We'll be the toughest football team in the state of West Virginia. We're going to operate faster than anybody in the state of West Virginia, and I think our community, our school, um, our players, parents, everybody. I think everybody will be proud and excited about of the product that we're going to put on the field. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Again, I want to thank Nate Tanner, the new head football coach at Princeton, for joining us today. I want to give a special shout out to our sponsors, Raynell Medical Center, Princeton Healthcare Center, and First Community Bank for helping us sponsor this episode. We'll be back with you next week.